You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Autumn mornings are quiet and peaceful. They blanket the landscape with a thick fog and fresh, dewy frost. Changing colors paint the rolling hills and wooded forest. All else seems to stand still as nature takes the main stage. Ron Sullivan and his son Nathan from Grand Falls, Windsor, Newfoundland, were out cutting wood, preparing for a long winter on one of those tranquil fall days. While Nathan was attempting to fall a tree, the chainsaw kicked back, turning him halfway around. Unfortunately, Ron had been observing his son a little too close, and the saw tore into his leg. Ron and Nathan, can you tell us what happened that day?
Yeah, we do have a story. It's kind of a story that came out at the end very good, but it was a bit scary when it first happened. But I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did. As you know, myself and Nathan is my son.
Yep.
And we cut wood a lot together for firewood for the house and that. We've been at it for many years. Myself been at it a lot longer than Nathan, obviously. And at the time, you never think about, something can happen. So we went about the normal day, had the saws all ready and gassed up to go get a load of wood. Now, over the years, I had cut myself with the chainsaw many a time and cut the sides of boots off and cut the laces out of them, the toes, and cut a lot of shirts and pants, but never ever to the point that, I did get a couple of little scratches, but nothing compared to what happened this day.
And kind of set the backstory a little bit. It's a beautiful day to be in the woods. It's October, fall, sunny, frost on the ground in the morning. Just to set that picture, but you're excited to go cut wood, and that's just what we done. And it's like a 5-minute quad ride. You get on the quad, hook up the trailer, put all the saws and the gear and everything in, and we actually had a cookout in the woods, me, you, and Mom, and then and then that was the day before. So then the following day, my mom, Dad's wife, was gone home, and then we went in again in the afternoon. Sorry, but so 5-minute quad ride, and we're in there. And what was it? Our last load, I think it was.
Yes, it was our last load because it's getting close to refreshment time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we decided, we'll have to get in a couple loads that day. Yeah, we said, we'll go back for one more. And we went to a place what we call Peace Brook Hill, which is, like you say, just up the road from the cabin. It goes up and it takes the bike, goes off the road and goes on into our trail and stuff. And we seen the wood that we're going to cut.
And just to describe the trail, we use our ATVs or four-wheelers just to, a quad. People call them many different things depending on where you reside.
Yep.
A four-wheeler, a quad, an ATV, with a trailer hooked up to it. And we don't just cut on the side of the road. We cut our wood trail into the woods and find what we're going after, and we wiggle around in through the woods. And we're well off the trail, not well off the trail, but for a bike, to be off the trail, we're in there. We're only probably about 50 feet from the road, but it takes you 5 minutes to wiggle in there and get turned around and come back in.
Yes, and at this time, we got our way in there. Like, this is just rough terrain, no road. And we cut our trail, cut the hollers, whatever's in the way, out of the way. And we done that days before because there are several times going back and forth there. So we seen this tree and went in and looked at it and everything. We sized everything up and decided about how we're gonna go about it. But this was a fairly sized birch tree. And we figured how we're going to cut it, which way it was going to fall, hopefully. That's what the plan was.
It was a bigger birch tree, but like it wasn't huge, but it wasn't small.
Yeah.
It was probably 20 inches.
Yeah.
In the base.
Yeah.
Is that the right measurement to use? Inches,
yeah.
20
Yes.
inches.
Yes.
Which is, a fair sized tree, nice, big, tall, massive birch tree.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when we decided how we were going to cut everything in that, Nathan started up the saw. And I done everything wrong that day at that particular tree that I taught him over the years not to do. He started the saw and everything proceeded to go into the tree, and I practically stood behind him. And
so can I just, you're missing a step here. This massive tree, we went into it and just sized it up first and then how we're going to follow it.
Okay.
And then I'm cut and the tree fell off it didn't fall. It cut, but it fell off the stump and just shifted and stayed upright, but was cut completely off. So I don't know if people understand when sometimes you cut a tree and it doesn't fall and it gets hung up in the canopy up top and it's still standing straight up.
Yeah.
But it's completely separate stump it came off of.
Yeah, it's called a widowmaker.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So the situation we were into. So then the saw ended up getting shut off, and then we sized it up again. It's like, okay, how are we going to tackle this? There's a whole other step to take care of those type of things. It's not just falling a tree anymore.
So anyway, we decided what we were going to do, looked around it and everything, decided what we were going to do, and the saw was started up again. And Nathan proceeded to go into the tree and that, not realizing there was a smaller tree behind it. And I done everything wrong by being too close to him. And when he put the saw in, it hit the tree and came back and struck me on the right leg, just above the knee, 8 inches above the knee. And I just, at a shock, I just stood there for a second, and then realizing what happened, I fell back to the ground, and then when I put my hand down, realized I was cut. And Nathan turned around and looked at me. He said, "What's wrong? Are you cut?" And I said, "Yes." And then he took over.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I took over. I don't know.
Well, he did because
for me, for that from there on in after me, it was a bit of a blur. I guess I don't know. Yeah, I remember that hitting the tree, spinning around, and it was, chain right into the leg. And your first thought is like, oh shit, was that chain? Oh, sorry. Oh crap, was that chain stopped? And he kind of, before he fell down, he just kind of stood there, and that was the shock. And it was like deer in headlights, and I was like, "Are you cut?" And he just put his hands down, was like, "Yep." And that's when he fell to the ground and started kind of screaming a bit. And I realized then, like, okay, yeah, definitely cut. And I just immediately threw the saw down and jumped down on top of it with 2 hands of pressure and just put immediate pressure on it as much as I possibly could. And I could feel with my hands that, like, we weren't dealing with a lot of blood yet. If we were bleeding out, I'd be soaked with it. And so I made the decision that to keep things calm for now, that he's not even going to look at it. I said, "You're not looking at it. Don't even look at it." Yep. I took a couple peeks and kind of seen what we were dealing with there. And I said, "You are not looking at this." And I'm calming him down. I'm telling him to breathe. The fact that he's still conscious is a good thing for me. And a little background, I've been a volunteer firefighter for 13 years. I work in dispatch at the fire hall. So we do first aid and advanced first aid every year to the point where, like, oh my God, this is killing us. But it do come in handy. Because, I just went into a blur and your training kicks in, I guess. And
So like I say, he jumped into it, and at the time now we got the quad in, and the quad was still facing the wrong direction. And the saw that hit me was a 590 Timberwolf, Echo Timberwolf 590, and that hit me full bore. And some things to me are a blur too, like things like how he told me, like I say, to keep my hands on the cart and keep pressure, and then he had to leave it and then go get the bike, get it turned around, and try to get it to me as close as possible. And then he had to get me on this quad, which I don't know how he done it. And finally, I was on the quad. Now, in that particular area, there was no cell coverage. So here I had my gun, my chainsaw, and everything else laid down in the woods and everything. The first thing I said to Nate, I said, we can't leave the gun and everything. He said,
fuck the gun.
Hell with everything. And it was a rough ride getting back out to the road. But we got out there, and finally he got a bit of cell service, and he called his fire dispatch, and then they made the call for him. So
I said, can I back it up a little bit, just from my perspective?
Yep.
It's all over the place.
Yep.
From my perspective, it's like, I'm on the cut and telling them deep breath. All of a sudden, I said, I got to go get the quad, and you're going to have to put pressure on this. I said, don't look at it. Keep pressure on it no matter how much it hurts. Yeah, okay, and he done that. And the whole time I'm looking back, making sure he's okay. And by this time, we're 5 minutes in. He's still talking. He's still conscious. So I'm confident that, like, we didn't hit the main artery. He wasn't bleeding out. But, within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, he's still bleeding pretty good. He's not going to bleed out in a minute. I had that time. But, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, he's going to lose blood. There's going to be shock.
Yep.
We're an hour and a half away from the hospital. I knew I still had to act. And so I just turned around, ran. I don't know, all I remember is unhooking the trailer, doing at least like an 8-point turn. I think I smacked into a couple trees, but I got that quad turned around pretty quick.
That's where that came from.
I got the quad turned around pretty quick and backed up to him, and I just remember putting him on the quad. I said, you got to lift your leg up. You got to lift your leg up. I can't. It hurts. And I said, yeah, it's going to hurt. And I just grabbed onto his leg and forced his leg up over it. He was screaming. And I was like, too bad. It's going to hurt. And then I had him on the back of the quad. He was just kind of cursing. And I said, sorry, but it got to happen. And anyways, we get out. And it was a rough road. And I finally got to the road. I'm moving at a slow pace on the phone and I said, I got no service. So I had to keep driving. So I was going to call the ambulance. But that would have been, where are you guys to? How old are you? It would have been a million questions, which, as a dispatcher, I understand. That's the job. You got to find the information. More information, the better. So I knew if I called my fellow dispatcher at the fire hall, it would be, Paul, I'm at the cabin with Potter. We got a serious leg cut here. I need an ambulance to meet me at Aspenbrook Road on the highway. I'm driving the quad. Let them know the details. And he said, no problem. I hung up the phone. Now I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yep, I can just drive.
I can drive. And drive I did.
Drive he did.
So I think Dad was scared for his life now because of the leg and how I was driving.
Yeah. I was on the back a little bit, scared, hanging on for dear life, trying to keep the pressure on the leg. And now, what am I going to die from? A cut or a quad accident?
And I'm conscious the whole time. Yeah, I was moving, but I got a lot of experience on the quad. But that doesn't. We had a lot of experience on the chainsaw. Look what happened.
Yeah.
See the point I'm trying to make? It doesn't matter. Something could happen, and we always say in emergency services when we're responding, we're no good in the ditch.
Nope.
Right? If I put this quad in the ditch, well, we're both in trouble. So I I was moving, but I was kind of in a zone. I was in a zone right from the beginning. I was making sure that I was safe with it at the same time, but we were hurrying out. And so, picture a resource road or a gravel road.
16 kilometers to meet the...
Yeah, 16 kilometers from where we were to the highway. So that's about a half-hour drive on a quad. But, the whole way out, I was just trying to talk to him, just keep him talking. Because at this point, I could feel my pants get wet.
Yep.
And I'm like, what's going on? Anyways, I've come to realize, obviously, that's blood coming from his leg, soaking into my pants. Because, when you're on a quad, the back seater's legs are around your torso.
Yep.
So that's what was happening. It was coming down onto my pants, and I was like, okay, yeah, we're definitely... So my thought process then now is like, okay, I got him on the quad, I got him halfway out, we're doing pretty good here. The next thing is blood loss, shock, all that stuff. So I'm just like, keep talking to me, and then I guess he can pick it up from there.
Yeah, he said, keep talking, and at one point he turned around and he said, I know you can't sing, he said, but sing me a song. Now, the funny part of this is years ago, Nathan worked in retail at one of the grocery stores here years ago.
As a teenager.
As a
first
teenager.
time job kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and as you know, retail stores in November or earlier puts on Christmas music.
Yep.
And it came to the point that Nathan didn't want to hear Christmas music. He was just hard. So he said to me, he said, sing me a song. I know you can't sing, but sing a song. And I said, all right, then. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. And he turned around and looked at me. He said, if you don't die from the cut, he said, you're going to die from me pushing you off the quad and singing. Yeah. So anyway, we got to the Trans-Canada Highway, and there was no ambulance, and lo and behold, this was the scary part. He crossed the highway on the quad. So there we are going down the highway then for 3 miles, fast as we can go to meet the ambulance instead of waiting for it.
Yep.
So I just want to put a little picture in or detail the Trans-Canada Highway. It's like one of the few highways that runs through Newfoundland and Labrador, but this is a highway with a speed limit 100 kilometers an hour, 2 lanes. 100 kilometers an hour, I believe, is about 50, 60 miles an hour. So, it's a highway.
Yeah.
A lot of transport trucks, a lot of big vehicles, and they're moving, and it's like, okay, they're not here yet. I was like, well, hang on, we're going. He's like, what do you mean we're going? I said, we're getting on that highway. Anyways, I rode the shoulder, and I think it was about 3 kilometers, which again, 1.5, probably 2 miles, before I finally seen the red lights, and I was like, thank God. It was like, anyways. We pulled over, they stopped, they hauled a U-turn, came up behind me, and I'll never forget this. Yeah, there was 3 paramedics on the truck, and I'm in the fire hall. I know some of the guys work in the paramedic units here and from Central Health, and I didn't recognize the first gentleman that came off. I believe he was new or a student, but I recognized the second one that was prepping a trauma bag, and well-experienced guy. I knew him. His wife was in the fire hall with us, and when you see familiar faces, it's a bit of a relief, and I was like, thank God. Anyways, I jumped off the quad and sees this paramedic that I don't know, and he's coming with this little compression bandage. And I'm like, you're going to need a lot more than that. And he's like, oh, let me just check it out. And when he takes Dad's hands off the cut, all I seen was the bandage just flying in the wind. He jumps on Dad's leg with 2 hands of pressure and just looks at his partner and says, trauma bag, trauma bag, trauma bag. And I was like, I told you that bandage was good. Anyway, when Buddy jumped on Dad's leg, that's when he started screaming.
Yeah, I tell you, that was the most excruciating pain. But I can remember saying to him, I said, oh, don't mind me. I said, you do your job. I know you got to do it. Don't mind. And it was terrible pain. I passed kidney stones. I had a heart attack a couple of years before that. But Buddy, when he put that pressure on, I knew he was pushing, not like I was.
Yeah, look, he knew what needed to be done there. Pressure means pressure.
Yeah.
And even I wasn't putting the pressure that I probably shouldn't have been, but, once you turn it over to the person experiencing the pain, to give pressure, they're not going to put themselves in more agony than they need to be if they don't understand.
Yeah.
So when the paramedic put paramedic pressure, it was pressure, and he felt it. And anyway, they loaded him into the back of the ambulance and stopped the bleeding pretty quick, actually, which I was surprised. They gave him pain medication, and I didn't go in I said, can I just have peek in, have a look? And knowing the paramedics, they were best on with me. I mean, I'm after helping them load that many patients in that same ambulance. It's not fit. So, we're familiar with it. Oh, yeah, come on in. And anyway, Dad's lying there on the stretcher, feeling great at this point.
At this point, yeah.
Because he got an IV drip in his arm. We stopped the bleeding. We got some medication in him, but, he's got his heart rate right now is, elevated. He had a heart attack. We're worried about stress, but, we'll get him to the hospital, he said, and that cut is very significant. And I was like, can I see it? Yeah, sure. And they showed it to me, and I was like, oh, my God. And it was just a gaping hole, right? And couldn't believe it because
wasn't a tear.
Yeah, it was tore. I only took peeks at it in the woods just to make sure I wasn't dealing with squirting amount of blood, and I wasn't. So the less I could look at it too, the better to keep me from going into a bit of a shock myself. And in the ambulance, once they had it cleaned up, I got a little bit of sense of relief. But I knew, there's still what's going to happen next. Anyways, they slammed the doors. I said, all right, well, I got the quad here. I can't go with you. I said, I'll call ahead. They were like, okay, yep, see you later. And they went on. And it was like a surreal moment. I'm left in the middle of Trans-Canada Highway on a quad by myself after what just happened. And things start to, you decompress, the adrenaline comes out of your body, you feel exhausted.
$1,000 on the side.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about that. And I called Mom, Dad's wife, and ironically, at the time, she worked in the hospital as a housekeeper or cleaner.
Okay.
And my sister worked in the hospital. And I called, and I was like, yep, Dad's on the way down to ambulance. What do you mean? I said, well, he cut his leg with a chainsaw. And she goes, oh, my God. And, kind of shocked and stuff. And I was like, I don't know how it happened. But, calm down. That's it. It happens. And, very good voice of reason, as always. And she was like, okay, well, I'll wait for him here. And anyways, I was like, what do? And then it clicked to me. I was like, geez, there's $5,000 worth of stuff back in the woods on the ground. And I said, I got to make my way back in. The cabin's open. Everything's there. And the woods. And anyway, so I started to make my way back in. And
I went on.
He was gone. I had no contact with him at this point. So, I'll finish my end of the story and then pass it on to him. He can pick up from the ambulance. I just went back in the woods, went back to where it happened. Again, another bit of a surreal moment. You just take a minute and look around and say, holy shit, what happened? His hat's still there on the ground because we lost that, the orange hat, hunting hat. And I was like, damn, right? Anyways, I hooked the trailer back up, gets everything picked up. And I said, I'm not leaving here without that damn tree. And I sawed up the tree, jumped it up, threw it in the trailer, and brought it back to the cabin. It was almost like I got a job. Anyways, I got a call. Mom said he's going into surgery. They're going to save the leg, but he might lose some muscle tone and tissue. But yeah, it's a serious cut. He's in surgery right now. And I was like, okay. And that was hard to hear too. But what could I do at this point? And I said, well, I guess I'll pack up and come down. Oh no, hang on now. We don't know what's going on here yet. He comes out of surgery. I talk to him. I'm going to come down from the cabin now. Get ready. No. You stay up there. You're no good down here. Stay up to the cabin, boy. Enjoy the evening. At the time, my aunt and uncle are next door at the cabin, and they invite me over for supper. And so anyways, I ended up staying at the cabin, but I think it was sitting in the cabin is what made it the hardest part because there's supposed to be people there with me, and they weren't.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my side of things to finish it. But and I had my moments at times sitting in that cabin, but I remember the words of Father, "Don't be so foolish," with a couple extracurricular words in there. Anyway, ambulance down. I'll let him take it.
Yeah, and like you say, I was in the ambulance. They cut the pants off me, brand new pair of pants. They cut them off anyway, cleaned it up, and I was feeling no pain by this time. And off we goes, and they were moving. Pulls into the hospital emergency. Doors open. Out I comes in the stretcher. When I looks around the corner, there's my wife and my daughter waiting there for me. Well, they get me in, get me hooked up and all cleaned up, and talking to the nurse, and the nurse said, "Now, what I'm about to do now is going to hurt a little bit." And I said, "My love," I said, "it's not your fault I'm here. I said, you do your job. Don't mind me." And she said, "Oh, very good. No problem." So anyway, they cleaned it all up, and one of the other nurse came in and going to take some more. I said, "Here's my phone. I'll take a picture of my leg for me." She said, "What?" I said, "Just take a picture of my leg for me. I want to have a look at it." And she kind of had a little chuckle at that. So she took the picture, and I looked at it at that time, but I didn't really care then because
so you high on medication.
Yeah, I was on medication then. So anyway, the cut was about 8 inches long. Now, it was a tear. What it was just torn. It was about 8 inches long.
It looked like, sorry to cut. It looked like minced meat.
Oh.
You know, they always say, "Change cut, it rips."
Yep.
So good.
Yeah. So like I said, the cut was about 8 inches long, probably 2 inches deep, and about 1.5 inches wide. Missed the femoral artery by a half inch, which was the main artery.
Wow.
And we missed the main bone.
It's the same as the jugular, but in your leg.
Yeah. And we missed the bone by probably a half inch. So all said and done, I was in the OR for a couple of hours, and it was a Friday afternoon. Everybody was pissed at me because they were all getting ready to go home. they all had to stay back, and so anyway, we all looked after. I remember the nurse saying to me, "You're not back again." I said, "I'm afraid so, my dear." He said, "You're going to soon have frequent flyer marks because about 3 years before that, I took a massive heart attack practically in the same spot where I cut my leg to. And I was by myself at the time, and I had to get myself out of that."
That's another
story. Another story.
I guess it was lights out for you after that. You don't remember surgery, obviously.
No, don't really. I say I didn't know nothing. I woke up and I was in my bedroom, in my room, and I lost 80% of my muscle mass, and I was in the hospital for 5 days. And I would have got out sooner, but they caught me making a note for supplies to go back to the cabin. They wouldn't let me out because they were afraid I was going back up there, which I was. So he kept me in for a little bit longer. So over the course of the healing and that, the cuts, back it up a little bit. We were watching it and everything. They covered the cut up completely with the bandage. No way anything was going to get out. That was the instruction from the doctor to the.
Yeah, hang on. I think you're going a little bit. He was in the hospital for 5 days. Couldn't really walk, but they made him get out of bed every evening and go down the hallway and come back. And he done it every time, even more if he could. And but the staples, it was there was 30 or 40 stitches they put inside, and then another 30 on the top layer and 20 staples, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, but 60 to 70 stitches and 20 staples close up this cut. And so
I had to go. Then after I got at the hospital, after a certain amount, I had to go get my staples out. So I went to the outpatient nurse. Did they call them? I forget what they call them.
It's just a community clinic.
Community clinic. And I went to them. They took the staples, and she completely bandaged in the cut. Completely bandaged it in. So that was 3 or 4 days into it. I was getting a smell. I used to sit down to me supper and that, or be dinner, or sit down. I used to get a smell like something was rotten. And I said, Teresa, was my clothes left in the drawer? I said, my clothes have been left in the drawers and they're gone sour. And she said, no. She said, your clothes are clean. Well, I said, I'm getting the smell. I said, well, after a couple of days, I said, Teresa, that smell's getting worse. I said, what's going on? When we come to discover, it was my leg was starting to rot.
Infection.
So I go again and go down to the emerge.
It was told not to remove this bandage for 5 days.
Yeah, I was told not to remove the bandage for 5 days.
So there was a breakdown in community. No, we don't blame anybody for it. There's some miscommunication there somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyways, he almost got a severe infection out of it, but luckily it was caught.
Yeah. I caught it. Went down the same doctor that same surgeon who done surgery happened to be on duty at the time. He come in, and this cut was still open then, and he was poking and prodding with this pointy thing, and I was in pain.
Oh, he just stuck
it in.
So you picture a scab, he just stuck it right in to the wound, right? And I guess he was trying to judge what's healed, what's not.
Yep.
And but they looked at him and said, "This is doing amazing.
Yeah.
We can't believe you're walking already. Did you come here on?" And they were just flabbergasted. And we were like, "What do you mean? Like, we're here worried."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like I said, it was a harrowing experience at the time, but now, like I said, the only reason why I brought this to the forefront for everybody to hear is to do what I didn't do over the years, and that is to go out and get the safety gear, pants, boots, glasses. It can save your life. If you can't afford to get it all at one time, get it piece at a time. But get it. And that's the only thing I want people to get out of this. And when I done this, I think Newfoundland had a chainsaw pants shortage. But everybody I see or know got chainsaw pants down.
Grand Falls, Windsor, where we're from, the town we're from in the province of Newfoundland, sold out of chainsaw pants.
Wow.
After the story got out there, right? And so we try to take that as an accomplishment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So a lot of people, most people were supportive. Thank you, blah blah blah. Glad you're okay. But you always get that one or two people. What were you doing this with the saw? You shouldn't have a saw in your hands if you're going to make that mistake. And we just decided to blow them off for the better of letting people know what happened.
Yep.
And again, as a lesson that it's between myself and my father, there's 80 plus years of wood cutting experience. And, obviously him having the ladder of it, me having about 20 to 30, it could happen at any moment. And even we didn't have a first aid kit in the woods with us. We were in a place with no cell phone service. Like, I would say your best option is don't go in the woods by yourself. But we all know that's not going to happen. That's their savior, to go in the woods by themselves and just enjoy. And they're going to do it, and I would encourage it. It's the best experience ever. But if you're operating a chainsaw or heavy equipment, you should have somebody with you. And if you can't, make sure you got a cell phone that's going to work. Make sure you got the things that you need that's going to save your life if something happens. Because you don't think it's going to happen, and when it does, well, you're up shit creek, in other words.
So up to this point, Brad, we used to take our chainsaw and we'll saw so far through it and everything. And one of us will get behind the tree and push it while the saw was just down by your ankle.
Oh, wow.
And push the tree, right? And while we're limbing it, here's one of us going with the limbs, sawing the limbs off, and the other one be right next to him, behind him, taking the limbs away within feet of them. And that has completely stopped.
Yeah, you're too close. Remember the COVID rules, 6 feet?
Yeah.
Well, treat chainsaw like COVID.
And that's how we work now with the chainsaw.
If someone got a chainsaw in their hand, you shouldn't be able to touch him.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that is just at the time is because you guys did have so much experience and you guys would just kind of work as a team, so it wasn't, I don't want to say you get complacent about it, but it's just second nature to what you've done it so long.
Well, it's the old rule. Can't happen to me.
Yeah.
But it can happen to you, and it can happen at the blink of an eye. So never ever think that it can't happen to you, because it can.
And there was mistakes made on both ends there. Like, I should never go into a tree with the tip of a saw. But again, complacency, you forget. You're just making a little mark. And
yep.
The saw was only half idle when it hit his leg. If it was at full idle, I would have never got him in. I can only imagine what the damage would have been if this was at full RPM.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Not good.
He had half RPMs and look at the cut we just described. Right? It would have took his leg. This is a big saw.
60 cc's.
Yeah, right? It's a big saw. But, and he was too close to me. And I guess it's, his mistake was father-son kind of thing. He wanted to be right in on top of it, on the action. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that.
Yep.
Those two mistakes combined turned into almost a fatal result. It was, the moons and stars aligned. I made a mistake combined with his mistake of being right up my ass, too close to me, spun me around and had nothing to hit but him. If he had been keeping his distance, it wouldn't have hit him. Had I had that cognizance to be like, oh, I'm not going in with the tip, I can't do that, I would have never spun around. Because you can look and say, you shouldn't have. But that's how it works. It happens. It happens.
Sometimes, like I said, sometimes things happen for a reason. It can be a teachable moment. It can be also a teachable moment for others listening to this podcast that cut wood by themselves in the woods or cut wood with a family member in the woods about safety. Definitely someone was watching out for you guys that day. I mean, otherwise you would have never made it out of the woods, or, that extra half inch, you would have cut that femoral artery and you would have bled out in the woods.
And a lot of people are saying, the training. I guess it did help. I did go into a zone. If you're a woodsman and you're in those situations where you're away from help, God, get a little bit of first aid. It could really make a difference.
But Brad, if you want to read some of the stories, I don't know if you had access to what you call the Wood Cutting Boys. It's a group that I made my first initial post into.
Okay. And
there's pictures of my cut in that, and a lot of feedback from people. And you wouldn't believe the number of people who've had chainsaw cuts and told their stories in that one. Wood Cutting Boys.
Some minor, some severe, and some could have been severe, but just there's a lot of people in that group, and there's opinions on different sides. I never wore a pants in my life, never had an issue. Okay, well, that's fine. Hope you never do. And there's people that I don't go into the woods without my chainsaw pants. Perfect, even better, and it's a pretty good group, to each their own kind of thing. There's over 40,000 people in this group, and it's all woodsmen, people who cut wood on their machines. And that's when Dad decided that he was going to make the post and let people know what happened to him to hopefully help other people out. And that's when it blew up. We had news outlets calling us and wanted to share the story. And he wasn't too fond on it first, but then when he got talking, he was good to go, just like right now.
Yep.
I said in the post, I said, boys, I'm writing this post now from a hospital bed here in central Newfoundland. Not to look for pity, but to get a message out to everybody, and that was safety gear.
Yeah.
And 99% of the comebacks were very, very sincere. And like you say, you just go in the wood cutting boys and put my name in, you pop up.
No, your story has definitely made a difference for sure, especially if you said all the chainsaw pants that sold out that fast. I mean, at the time when you guys were cutting, I mean, you must have seen other guys in the woods out cutting, right? When you guys would go out in the woods?
Up by our cabin alone.
Do
you ever see any other people cutting? And if so, did they use safety gear, or was it just pretty uncommon at the time for people not to wear safety gear?
Up where we were too, and around this area, nobody wore safety pants. You had probably one or two.
Okay.
And now, like you say, his uncle Brian, he's not allowed to go in the woods with him. I was at a St. Paddy's Day party, and 3 of the men there are not allowed to go in the woods without chainsaw pants on. The wife said they're not allowed. It took off. Everybody now got chainsaw pants.
Oh.
And onto the point now that I feel naked without having them on with the chainsaw. It's just it's just natural now, like putting on your shoes.
You get pants that are just like snow nylon. It's like a snow pant.
Okay.
And it's only like a snow pant where the protection is. The other parts where there's no protection, it's just like a nylon between, and that's it. So like it's breathable. And in the wintertime, that's all I got on. A pair of pajama pants and those chainsaw pants and a coat, and I'm gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know if people out there want to know about chainsaw pants, there's I believe there's different chainsaw companies, but one of the most popular here, especially in the United States, is Steel. And I believe if they still have it, I remember a few years ago seeing a video that they had put out on basically how they work. Once that chain hits that pant, it actually catches in there and actually stops the saw. It's pretty gnarly. Bunches it right up. Yep.
Usually it's fibers, like a bunch of fibers or material or fabric, and then once it hits, it binds everything right up and stops it dead in its tracks, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it works the same way, Brad, as a loose coat.
Yep.
It happened to me again one time. I was needing a brand new coat the wife bought for me, and it was baggy, and I was leaning over, and the saw came back and hit the coat. But like I say, where the coat was baggy on me, it stopped the chain. I lost the coat, but it stopped it. I mean, I've had a couple.
But that's another close call. Right?
I was just saying, yikes.
You don't chalk it up to close calls. You're just like, oh, Jesus, well, I lost me coat. That was stupid.
Oh, we didn't
and off you go.
Yep.
We didn't buy pants 10.
Like I said,
I got more coats and boots and laces cut and pants cut, but nothing serious, just little nicks. But that's part of that. I figured that's part of getting wood.
Yeah,
but
so it was bound to happen at some point then.
Yes, nobody should be in the woods without safety gear.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's just something. That's all I want to get out there. Wear the safety gear. It will save your life if need be.
So after the accident, Ron, now, how many years has it been since the accident?
4 years.
4 years.
So what kind of effects do you have from the accident? I mean, are you able to get around real well yet, or?
I can get around pretty good, yeah, like you say. But now if I go for a long walk or standing for a while, my legs do bother me, but not to the point to complain, because I'm just happy and glad and thankful to have what I still got.
Yep.
But like I say, it do bother me. 80% of the muscle was gone, but I can get around pretty good. I'm still cutting wood, still at that, but a lot more safety conscious.
there anything else you want to add, Nathan?
He stepped out there for a second.
You did.
He's on the way.
For another cold one, or?
No, I think I already have my spiel on the safety thing, and don't let pride get in the way. I guess it's the typical woodsman. The last thing they want to do is come down and tell about how they messed something up or something went wrong and they couldn't get out of the situation. But life is more valuable than pride, and if something's going to save your life, then you might as well jump up on it. And if you're going to make a mistake, then hopefully it's not a fatal mistake. But if it is a fatal mistake or a serious mistake, then be prepared for it. That's the best I can say. I was lucky I had training. I knew a lot of people would look at a cut like that and probably pass out right next to them. Right? Prepare yourself for what you could get into when you're in the woods and be mentally ready all the time. Prepared, mentally and physically. It's the wild outdoors, man. It's relentless, and it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't favor you, me, or any animal. Respect it. Respect the saw. Respect the outdoors. Respect what can kill you.
Yeah.
And like myself, my first experience in the woods was a close call when I had my heart attack. I should have slowed down. I went back for my fourth load when I should have probably only had 2 loads. It was a warm day, and the doctor told me that the good thing I came down out of it, or I wouldn't have came out of it, only in the stretch and in the body bag. So like you say, don't let your pride stand in the way of keeping you safe.
Yep.
And one other thing, you hear stories. A man was cutting wood and he was found dead right next to his truck with a cut on his leg.
Yeah.
Or this man was in the woods. He was lost for 5 days. He was found frozen to death. Like, what could have prevented that? Something as simple as chainsaw pants for $60 would mean that person's father, brother, husband is still in the world today. Like, just if you can't buy the chainsaw pants for yourself, think about everyone around you.
Yep.
And since I had this accident, I'm after hearing from a couple of people that have lost loved ones through chainsaw cuts because they were by themselves and they bled out. I've heard 2 or 3 stories of that.
Yeah, that's horrible. Something so simple could save a life,
Cost us what, $80-something on sale.
Yeah, it's compared to what a chainsaw cost. Chainsaw is very expensive compared to a cheap pair of pants.
We come to learn that they were more comfortable in the winter. I found myself throwing on my chainsaw pants to go on the skidoo to go get water.
I went for a ride on skidoo the other day with mine on. We were 9 Mile back, and I threw them on because I took the saw and the cart to get a load of wood on the way back. But 9 Mile back is probably one of the coldest spots up around the cabin, but I was perfect. All I had on was chainsaw pants and a pair of boxer shorts.
Yep.
Plus a coat now, of course.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Ron, for sharing your story with me today.
No problem.
No problem.
No, you guys did great. You guys did great. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, each year, approximately 36,000 people are treated in the hospital emergency departments for injuries using chainsaws. Even the most experienced operators make mistakes. And if the pro can mess up, you can too. Chainsaws certainly are remarkable tools. In fact, they're powerful enough to cut through just about any reasonable sized tree in mere seconds. And that's scary when you think what they could do to a human soft tissue. Luckily for Ron, the good Lord was watching out for him that day. Thanks to the quick actions of Ron's son, Nathan, the years of first aid kicked in, and his ability to stay cool, calm, and collected through such a traumatic event should be commended. Nathan is a true hero as are all firefighters that put their life on the line every time they get an emergency call. A big thank you to all the emergency workers out there. And remember to stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.